The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by any known species. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, a massive station of silver and gold that had stood for 12,000 years. Inside its walls, the seven elder races had made every important decision in the galaxy. They decided who could trade. They decided who could travel. They decided who lived and who died. Today, they would decide the fate of a small blue planet called Earth. Ambassador Park Yuna stood at the entrance of the Great Hall and took a deep breath. She was 42 years old, with black hair tied back in a simple knot and eyes that missed nothing. Behind her stood 12 other humans, the first official diplomatic team ever sent beyond their own solar system. They had traveled for 3 months to reach this place. They carried gifts, treaties, and the hopes of 8 billion people. The doors opened, and Park Yuna walked into the Great Hall. The council members sat on floating platforms high above the floor. Each platform held one of the elder races. The Velthari were tall insect creatures with 4 arms and compound eyes that glittered like black jewels. The Mordani were reptiles covered in dark green scales, their mouths full of sharp teeth. The Keshan were pale beings made mostly of flowing tentacles. And at the highest platform sat High Arbiter Thesix, the leader of them all. He was a creature of silver skin and 6 eyes, and he looked down at the humans with an expression of complete boredom. Park Yuna bowed deeply, as was the custom. "Great Council," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I am Ambassador Park Yuna of Earth. Humanity greets you with open hands and peaceful hearts. We come seeking friendship and recognition as members of the galactic community." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the Velthari representative, a massive insectoid named Quelix, made a sound that Park Yuna realized was laughter. "These are the humans?" Quelix asked, his voice buzzing through the translation device. "These small, soft creatures? I have seen their technology reports. They still use chemical rockets for some of their vessels. They've only had faster-than-light travel for 60 years. 73 years, Park Yuna corrected politely. "It does not matter," said High Arbiter Thesix. His voice was cold and flat. "The Council requires a minimum of 500 years of faster-than-light capability for membership consideration." "You are not ready, we understand," Park Yuna said. "We ask only for observer status. A chance to learn from your wisdom and contribute what we can." "What could you possibly contribute?" asked the Mordani representative, a general named Krath. His yellow eyes studied the humans with open contempt. "Ah, you are children. Your entire civilization is younger than some of our buildings." Park Yuna kept her face calm. She had prepared for this. "We bring new perspectives, new ideas. We have scientists who would love to share knowledge with your researchers. We have artists who create works unlike anything in the galaxy. We have enough." Thesix raised one silver hand. "The Council has heard your request. The answer is no. You may return to your planet and apply again in 400 years. Park Yuna felt something cold settle in her stomach, but she maintained her composure. "I understand. Then may I ask for one thing? A simple trade agreement. Nothing complicated. Just the right to buy and sell goods with willing partners?" The council members looked at each other. Finally, Thesix nodded. "This is acceptable. You may trade with non-council species only. You will pay the standard tariff of 40% on all goods. You will not be protected by council law. Is this clear?" "It is clear," Park Yuna said. "Thank you for your time." She bowed again and turned to leave. Behind her, she heard Quelix make another laughing sound. "Primitive curiosity," he said to his neighbor. "They will destroy themselves within a century." "They always do." Park Yuna said nothing. She walked out of the Great Hall with her head held high. The diplomatic mission returned to their ship, a dawning star. Park Yuna sent her report to Earth explaining what had happened. The response from Supreme Commander Kim Do-yeon was simple. Continue as planned. Gather information. Be patient. So they were patient. For 8 months, the humans stayed in neutral space. They traded with smaller species. They learned about galactic politics. They mapped trade routes and studied council military movements. Park Yuna smiled at every insult and ignored every dismissive comment. She was gathering information. No one seemed to notice or care. Then the Mordani attacked Kepler-44b was a human colony world. 300 light-years from Earth, it was home to 300,000 people farmers. Miners, families who had left Earth to build a new life among the stars. They had no military presence. They had no weapons beyond hunting rifles. The Mordani came with 15 warships. General Krath had decided that humanity needed to learn its place. The council would not stop him. Humans were not protected by council law. And besides, the colony sat on valuable mineral deposits that the Mordani wanted. The attack lasted for hours. The Mordani ships bombed every major city from orbit. When they landed, their soldiers moved through the ruins, killing anyone they found. They did not take prisoners. They did not show mercy. When it was over, 300,000 humans were dead. The youngest was a baby girl named Yoon Somi, only 3 months old. The oldest was a man named Baek Junho, 97 years old, who had come to Kepler-4 to see his grandchildren. One last time, the Mordani raised their flag over the ashes and sent a message to Earth. This world now belongs to the Mordani Empire. Any attempt to interfere will be met with similar consequences. Ambassador Park Yuna received the news aboard the Dawning Star. She read the casualty reports 3 times. Then she walked to the Great Hall of the Galactic Council and demanded to see High Arbiter Thesex. 300,000 of my people are dead, she said, her voice shaking with controlled fury. Murdered, civilians, children, I demand justice. Thesex looked down at her with those 6 cold eyes. You are not council members, he said. Your dead are not our concern. Park Yuna stared at him for a long moment. The other council members watched with mild interest, as if observing a small animal do something unexpected. Finally, Park Yuna bowed. It was a short bow, barely polite. I understand, she said quietly. Thank you for making your position clear. She turned and walked out of the Great Hall for the last time. The council members returned to their business, already forgetting about the small human woman and her dead people. They did not see the message she sent to Earth. They did not see Supreme Commander. Kim Do-yeon read that message and closed his eyes for a long moment. They did not hear him pick up his communicator and call the Joint Chiefs of the United Earth Military. Begin Protocol Sunrise, Kim Do-yeon said. His voice was soft, but there was something terrible in it. Effective immediately. We are going to war. In the Great Hall, the council continued their discussions about trade, tariffs, and border disputes. They had no idea what was coming. 6 months passed. After the massacre at Kepler-4 the Galactic Council forgot about humanity completely. They had more important things to worry about: trade agreements, political alliances, the endless small conflicts that filled their days. The Mordani boasted about their victory at diplomatic gatherings. General Krath wore a medal made from metal taken from the ruins of the human colony. Earth was silent. No protests, no threats, no diplomatic missions. The council found this silence strange at first. They had expected the humans to cry and beg for help. That was what lesser species did. But after a few weeks, they stopped thinking about it. Humans were primitive. Perhaps they had simply given up. They were wrong, deep in the asteroid belt of Earth's solar system. Fleet Admiral Shin Tai-ho stood on the bridge of humanity's newest warship. It was called the Silent Thunder, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. While council ships were massive and powerful, built to intimidate with their size, the Silent Thunder was sleek and dark. It absorbed sensor signals instead of reflecting them. Its engines produced almost no heat signature. It could move through space like a ghost. How many ships do we have now? Shin Tai-ho asked his officer. 212 combat-ready, Admiral. Another 50 in final construction. Shin Tai-ho nodded. He was 55 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face that rarely smiled. He had spent his entire career preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Now that it had come, He intended to win it. And the crews? Training is complete. Every captain has run the simulation at least 40 times. They know their targets. Far away, on a small space station, in neutral territory, Intelligence Officer Choi, she was having a very different kind of conversation. She sat across from a nervous-looking aliena Tessari, one of the smaller species that the Council treated almost as badly as they treated humans. The Tessari had big eyes and thin arms, and he kept looking over his shoulder at the door. "You want me to betray the Council?" he whispered. Joy Jusu smiled. She was 38 years old, with a round face that made her look younger and kinder than she was. "I want you to help yourself," she said. "The Council takes 60% of your people's mining profits. They treat you like servants." "How long have the Tessari waited for a seat on the Council?" 2,000 years, the Tessari admitted. "And how much longer do you think you will wait?" The Tessari was quiet for a moment. Then he slid a data chip across the table. Mordani patrol schedules for the next 3 months. Guard rotations for their orbital stations. "This is all I have." Choi. Jisoo took the chip and made it disappear into her coat. "You have our gratitude. And when the time comes, humanity will remember who helped us." This scene repeated itself dozens of times on dozens of worlds. Choi Jisoo had spent 6 months building a network of informants and allies among the species the Council had ignored or mistreated. She had maps of every important military installation. She knew the personal secrets of Council members. She knew which generals were corrupt, which politicians could be bribed, and which systems had weak defenses. Earth was not sitting quietly. Earth was preparing. The first sign of trouble came 3 months after Choi. Jisoo completed her intelligence network. A Mordani supply ship vanished. It was carrying food and weapons to a military outpost near the border. One moment it was traveling through normal space. The next moment it was gone. No distress signal. No debris. Nothing. General Krath was annoyed, but not worried. Ships sometimes had accidents. Then another ship vanished. And another. 5 ships in 2 weeks. All in the same region of space travel. Kara sent a patrol fleet to investigate 3 warships with full crews. They reported finding nothing unusual. They reported that they were returning home. Then they stopped responding. When a rescue team finally reached the last known location, they found all 3 ships drifting dead in space. The power was off. The weapons had never been fired, and every single crew member was gone. There were no bodies. No blood, no signs of struggle. It was as if the crews had simply walked off their ships and into the void. Fear began to spread through the Mordani military. Soldiers whispered about ghost ships and invisible enemies. Some refused to go on patrol duty. Some deserted entirely. High Arbiter Thesix received daily reports about the disappearances, but he dismissed them. "The Mordani are incompetent," he told his advisors. "They cannot even maintain their own ships. This is not our concern." But the disappearances continued. Outposts on the Mordani frontier went dark. Mining stations stopped sending reports. A listening post recorded something strange before going silent, a burst of radio noise that, when translated, contained only 2 words in human language: "We remember." General Krath finally understood what was happening. He went to the Council and demanded help. "Humanity is attacking us," he said, his scales flushing dark with anger. "They have developed some kind of stealth technology. They are destroying our ships and killing our soldiers. The Council must respond." Thesix looked down at him with cold eyes. "You have proof of this?" "The proof is obvious. Who else would attack us?" "Perhaps pirates," Thesix suggested. "Or one of your many enemies." "The Mordani are not known for making friends. You must help us." "Must?" The Zex's voice became dangerous. "The Council does not take orders from lesser members. If you cannot defend your own territory, perhaps you do not deserve to hold it." Krath left the Council chamber, shaking with rage. He returned to Mordani space and gathered the largest fleet he could, 40 warships, the pride of the Mordani military. He would find these human ghosts and destroy them. Himself, the fleet traveled to the region where the disappearances had occurred. They spread out in search formation, sensors at maximum power, weapons ready for 3 days. They found nothing. On the 4th day, the humans attacked. They came from everywhere at once. Ships appeared out of nothing, weapons already firing. They moved faster than anything the Mordani had ever seen, darting, spinning, impossible to track. Their weapons cut through Mordani's shields like they were made of paper. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 38 Mordani warships were destroyed. The remaining 2 were allowed to escape, carrying a message back to the Council. The message was a single video recording. It showed Admiral Shintaiho standing on the bridge of the Silent Thunder, his face calm and cold. "You killed our families," he said. "You laughed at our tears. You told us that our dead were not your concern. Now you will learn what concerns humanity." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "This is not revenge. Revenge is emotional and wasteful. This is a lesson. And class is now in session." Video ended. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, Desix watched the recording with growing horror. Around him, the other council members whispered nervously. "How is this possible?" Quelix demanded. "They are primitives. They should not have technology like this." Desix said nothing. He was thinking about the human ambassador, the small woman with the steady eyes, who had bowed so politely when he dismissed her. He was thinking about how calm she had been, how patient. He was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. But it was already too late. The attack came on the 1-year anniversary of the Kepler 442b massacre. This was not an accident. Humanity wanted the galaxy to understand exactly why this was happening. At exactly midnight Earth time, human forces struck 17 Mordani military installations across 4 star systems. The attacks were perfectly coordinated. Every target was hit at the same moment, down to the second. This required planning that the Council had believed impossible for such a young species. Admiral Shintaiho commanded the assault on the Mordani's largest shipyard. His fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, already firing. The Mordani defenders had no warning. By the time they realized what was happening, half their ships were already burning. "Target the construction bays," Shin ordered calmly. "We want to destroy their ability to build new ships. Leave the escape pods alone. Let them run." This was humanity's way. They were brutal and efficient in combat, but they did not kill those who could not fight back. Every Mordani who surrendered was allowed to live. Every escape pod was left untouched. The humans wanted the survivors to go home and tell everyone what they had seen. But the most important attack was happening on Mordo's Prime. The Mordani homeworld ground commander Li Mingyi led the assault on the orbital defense station above the planet. She was 34 years old, small and quick, with a reputation for doing impossible things. Her Marines called her the Ghost because she had a habit of appearing where no one expected. The Mordani station was supposed to be impenetrable. It had 5,000 soldiers, heavy weapons, and shields that could stop a nuclear bomb. The Mordani believed no one could ever take it by force. Li Mingyi took it in 11 minutes. Her Marines came in small boarding pods that were too small for the station's sensors to detect. They cut through the hull in dozens of places at once, spreading confusion and fear. The Mordani were trained to fight ship-to-ship battles. It's not close combat with an enemy inside their walls. The humans were different. Every Marine was trained in hand-to-hand fighting. They moved through the station's corridors like water, fast and unstoppable. They worked in teams, covering each other, communicating with hand signals and helmet radios. The Mordani tried to fight back, but they had never faced anything like this. Humans were smaller than them, yes, but they were also faster and more aggressive. They did not hesitate. They did not show fear. They fought like creatures who had already accepted death and were simply choosing to take as many enemies with them as possible. "Station is secured," Li Mingyi reported, standing in the command center. Around her, Mordani officers were being led away in restraints. Casualties: 12 wounded, commander. None dead. Li Mingyi nodded. She looked out the window at Mordo's Prime below. Billions of Mordani lived on that planet. They were watching this moment, knowing that humanity now controlled the weapons that could destroy them all. But the humans did not fire. They simply held their position and waited because the real attack was not military. It was political ambassador Park Yuna, appeared on every broadcast frequency in Council space simultaneously. This was another impossible feat. The Council's communication networks were supposedly secure. But Choi Jisu's intelligence teams had been very thorough. Park Yuna's face filled screens on 1,000 worlds. 1 year ago, she said, her voice calm and clear, the Galactic Council told humanity that our dead were not their concern. They told us we were too primitive, too unimportant to deserve justice. Today, we answer them. She held up a data crystal that glittered in the light. This contains evidence that the massacre at Kepler 442b was not a random act of Mordani aggression. It was planned and approved by 3 members of the Galactic Council. She paused, letting the words sink in across the galaxy. The Velthari Consortium provided weapons to the Mordani fleet that attacked our colony. The Keshan Combine supplied intelligence on our defensive capabilities. And High Arbiter Thesix himself signed a secret agreement promising the Mordani that the Council would not interfere in exchange for a share of the mineral rights to our dead colony's land. The effect was immediate and explosive. Across Council space, people stopped what they were doing and stared at their screens. The smaller species, the ones the Council had always ignored, began to whisper among themselves. In the Great Hall, Thesix rose from his platform in fury. "Lies!" he shouted. "Human propaganda." But Choi Jisu's evidence was not lies. It was copied from the Council's own secret archives, stolen by agents who had spent months infiltrating Council security. There were recordings of private meetings, financial records showing payments, messages between Thesix and General Krath, discussing how to divide the stolen land. The proof was undeniable. The other Council members turned on the accused. The Tasari representative, who had helped Choi Jisu, demanded an immediate investigation. Other smaller species joined the call. For the first time in thousands of years, the Council was divided. "You sold us out," screamed the representative from the Hollow Worlds. "You murdered children for profit." "Order," the Six shouted. "I demand order." But there was no order. The Council chamber descended into chaos. Meanwhile, Park Yuna continued her broadcast. "We do not ask the galaxy to fight for us," she said. "We only ask that you see the truth. The Council that claims to protect you has been lying to you for centuries. They do not care about justice. They care about power." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Humanity came to the Council with open hands. We wanted peace. We wanted friendship. They answered with contempt and murder. Now we answer with war. But not against all of you only, against those who wronged us. If you stand aside, no human weapon will touch you. This is our promise. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, species that had lived under Council rule for thousands of years began to ask questions. If the Council could do this to the humans, what had they done to others? What secrets were still hidden? Riots broke out on 3 Council worlds. Trade ships refused to carry Mordani goods. The Velthari faced protests from their own people demanding answers. General Krath fled Mordos Prime in a private ship, abandoning his people. He was captured by human forces 2 days later. The trial would come later. For now, he was simply held in a cell. Alone with his fear, Supreme Commander Kim Do-yeon received reports of the successful operations on Earth. He read them carefully, then called Admiral Shin. "The Mordani are finished," Kim said. "But this is only the beginning." "What is the Council doing?" "They are trying to organize a response," Shin replied. "But they are too busy fighting each other. The accusations have destroyed their unity." Kim's voice was cold. "Then it is time for Phase 3. The Council itself." "Understood, Commander." Kim ended the call and looked out his window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, his forces were fighting and dying for humanity's future. He had sent them into battle, knowing that some would not return. but he also knew that there was no other choice. The Council had shown humanity what happened to those who were weak. They had taught humanity that the galaxy respected only strength. Now humanity would show them just how strong they could be. The war was far from over. The war entered its second month, and the Mordani Empire was dying. Their fleet was scattered across a dozen systems, hunted by human ships that appeared and disappeared like nightmares. Their colonies were cut off from supplies and reinforcements. Their economy was collapsing as trade partners abandoned them, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. General Krath sat in his cell on a human prison ship, staring at the wall. He had commanded the massacre at Kepler 4 for 2B. He had worn a medal made from the ruins of human homes. Now he wore gray prison clothes and ate food brought by human guards who looked at him without hatred, which was somehow worse. One day, a human officer visited his cell. It was Intelligence Officer Choi Jasu. "I have questions," she said simply. "I will tell you nothing." Choi Jasu smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You already have. We captured your personal database 2 weeks ago. We know everything's the secret meetings, the hidden bank accounts, the other species you have attacked and enslaved. We have enough evidence to convict every senior Mordani officer of war crimes." Krath's scales went pale. "Then why are you here?" "Because I wanted to see your face when I told you what comes next." She leaned forward. "We are not going to execute you. We are going to put you on trial in front of the entire galaxy. Every species will see what you did. Every family will know the truth. And when it is over, you will spend the rest of your life in a cell, knowing that your empire is gone and your name is remembered only as a monster." She stood up and walked to the door. "Enjoy your meal, General. It will be many years before you eat anything else." While the Mordani collapsed, humanity was building something new. Diplomat Kong Yunji traveled to neutral space, where the non-aligned species had gathered to watch the war with nervous interest. These were the dozens of younger races that the Council had dismissed and exploited for thousands of years. They had always been too weak to resist. Now, for the first time, they were wondering if that might change. Kong Yunji met with them in a small station far from Council territory. She was 40 years old, with gentle eyes and a voice that made people want to trust her. This was useful because her message was one of hope. "We do not ask you to fight for us," she told the gathered representatives. "We only ask you to remember what the Council has done to you. They take your resources. They ignore your requests. They treat you like servants in your own homes." The Tesserae representative spoke first. "This is true. But what can we do?" "The Council is powerful. Council is afraid," Kong Yunji replied. "For the first time in 12,000 years, someone is fighting back, and they do not know how to respond." She looked around the room at the strange and beautiful faces of a dozen different species. Humanity remembers what it feels like to be dismissed, to be told that we do not matter. "We promise you this. If we win this war, we will not become a new council. We will build something different. A place where every species has a voice. Where no one is ignored," representatives whispered among themselves. Then, one by one, they began to speak. The Tesserae promised to stop trading with the Mordani. The Hollow Worlds agreed to share intelligence about council movements. Others offered supplies, safe harbors, and most importantly, hope. Humanity was not alone anymore. Back in council space, High Arbiter Thesix was trying to save his empire. He called an emergency session of the council, demanding a unified response to the human threat. He spoke for hours about the danger, about how humanity would destroy everything the council had built, about how they must stand together or fall separately. When the vote came, it failed. The Velthari and Kessians, exposed by Park Yuna's broadcasts as partners in murder, had lost all political credibility. No one would support any proposal they backed. The remaining council members were too afraid of being the next target to commit their forces. "This is madness," Thesix shouted. "They are just humans. A primitive species barely out of their caves, a primitive species that destroyed the Mordani fleet in 3 weeks," the Tesserae representative pointed out quietly. "A primitive species that captured your secret files. Perhaps you have underestimated them. Perhaps said another representative. "You should have listened when they asked for justice." Desix stared at them with growing horror. He was watching everything he had built fall apart, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. On Earth, Supreme Commander Kim Do-yeon studied the reports from the council session. He saw the fear and confusion in the recordings. He understood that the moment had come. "Admiral Shin," he said into his communicator, "prepare the fleet. We are moving on the council station." "Understood, Commander." "All ships? All ships. I want them to see exactly what they are facing." 3 days later, the human fleet appeared in orbit around the council station. There were 200 warships, arranged in perfect formation. They surrounded the great silver and gold structure that had been the center of galactic power for 12,000 years. Their weapons were powered and ready. Their shields were at full strength. Inside the station, panic spread through the halls. Council members and diplomats ran to their ships trying to escape, but the human fleet blocked every exit. No one was leaving. Ambassador Park Yuna's face appeared on every screen in the station. 12 months ago, I stood in your great hall and asked for justice," she said. "You laughed at me. You told me that my dead people were not your concern. You sent me away like a beggar." Her eyes were calm but cold. "I have returned. And this time, I am not asking." She held up a document. "This is a list of our demands. Full dissolution of the current council structure. War crimes tribunals for those responsible for the Kepler-4 for to be massacre. Reparations to the families of the dead. And a new galactic assembly where every species, not just your chosen few, has an equal voice." She paused. "You have 12 hours to accept these terms. After that, we will be forced to take direct action." The screen went dark. In his private chambers, High Arbiter Desix sat alone. His silver skin had lost its shine. His 6 eyes stared at nothing. He had ruled the galaxy for 300 years. He had believed that nothing could threaten his power. He had looked at the small human woman, with her steady eyes, and seen only a minor annoyance. Now, that woman controlled the weapons that could destroy everything he had built. His advisor entered the room quietly. "Hi, Arbiter. The other council members are demanding a meeting. They want to know what we should do." Desix was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed a broken, bitter sound. "What we should do." He repeated, "We should have listened. That is what we should have done. We should have listened when they asked for help. We should have punished the Mordani for their crimes. We should have treated humanity with respect instead of contempt." He stood up slowly like an old man. "But we did not. And now we must pay the price." He walked toward the door. Ready to face the council one last time, outside, the human fleet waited in perfect formation. Patient and unstoppable. The reckoning had come. The great hall of the galactic. Council had never been so quiet. High Arbiter Desix stood at the center of the floor, the same floor where 1 year ago he had dismissed humanity like they were nothing. His silver skin was dull. His 6 eyes were tired. Around him, the other council members sat on their floating platforms, silent and afraid. Across from him stood the human delegation. Supreme Commander Kim Do-yeon was in the front. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and a face carved from stone. He did not sit. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking up at the beings who had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Behind him stood Admiral Shin Tai-ho, whose fleet surrounded the station. Ground Commander Lee Ming-yi, whose marines controlled every entrance and exit. Intelligence Officer Choi Jisoo, whose spies had brought the council to its knees. And Ambassador Park Yuna, who had walked these halls once before in peace. Kim Do-yeon spoke first. "You have read our demands," he said. His voice was calm and quiet, but it filled the entire hall. "I am here to give you one chance to accept them." Desix tried to summon his old authority. "And if we refuse, then we will do what you forced us to learn." Kim's eyes were cold. "We will fight. And we have discovered that humanity is very good at fighting." "You would destroy this station? Kill everyone inside?" "No." Kim shook his head. "We do not kill those who cannot fight. But we will blockade this station until you starve. We will destroy every ship that tries to leave. We will broadcast your shame to every world in the galaxy until your own people drag you from your platforms." He took a step forward. "You taught us that the galaxy respects only strength. Now we are showing you our strength. The question is whether you are wise enough to accept defeat." The hall was silent. The council members looked at each other, but no one spoke. They all knew the truth. Humanity had won. The only choice left was whether to surrender with dignity or be destroyed completely. Finally, Thesix lowered his head. "We accept your terms," he said quietly. "All of them." Kim Doyon nodded. "Then let us begin." The trials lasted 3 months. General Krath was the first to face judgment. He sat in a courtroom broadcast to every inhabited world, while survivors of the Kepler 442b massacre told their stories. An old woman named Oyin He described watching her grandchildren die. A young man named Han Yemen told how he had hidden in a cellar for 6 hours. Listening to the screams above, Krath was found guilty of crimes against sentient beings. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. His name forever marked in the records of galactic history as a murderer of children. The Mordani government collapsed. Those responsible for ordering the massacre were captured and tried. Those who had simply followed orders were given a choice: exile or service. Most chose to help rebuild what they had destroyed. High Arbiter Thesix was not executed. That would have made him a martyr. Instead, he was stripped of all power and authority. He was given a small pension and a house on a minor world, where he would live out his remaining years in comfortable obscurity. For a being who had ruled galaxies, it was a fate worse than death. The Velthri Consortium and Keshion combined faced sanctions that crippled their economies. Their representatives on the council were replaced with reformers who promised to do better. Whether they would keep those promises remained to be seen. But the most important change was not punishment. It was the creation of the Galactic Assembly. The new assembly met in a rebuilt section of the old council station. Instead of 7 platforms for the elder races, there were now 300 seats arranged in a great circle. Every species had the same voice, the same vote, the same rights. Ambassador Park Yuna stood at the center of the circle on the day of the assembly's founding. She wore a simple black dress with a small pin on her collar, memorial for the dead of Kepler 4, for it to be. "We are not conquerors," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "We are not your masters. We did not fight this war to replace one tyranny with another." She looked around at the representatives of 100 worlds. Some were tall and strange. Some were small and frightened. All of them were watching her with hope and uncertainty. "We fought because we had no choice, because the galaxy showed us that the weak are destroyed and the strong are feared. We fought because our children were murdered and no one cared." Her voice softened. "But strength is not just the power to destroy. It is also the courage to build something better. That is what we offer the galaxy now. Not war, not domination. A future where no species is dismissed, where no massacre goes unanswered, where every voice matters." She paused, and her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "We remember our dead. We will always remember them. But we honor them not through revenge, but through building the kind of galaxy where such things can never happen again." She stepped back, and the assembly rose in applause. Not from fear, from hope. In the gallery above the assembly floor, Supreme Commander Kim Do-yoon watched with Admiral Shin, Commander Lee, and Officer Choi. They wore civilian clothes now. The war was over. It was time to become something other than soldiers. "Do you think it will work?" Shin asked quietly. "This assembly, this new order?" Kim was silent for a moment. Below them, representatives from species that had been enemies for centuries were shaking hands and talking like friends. "I do not know," Kim admitted. "The galaxy has been ruled by fear for a long time. It will take generations to change that. There will be setbacks. There will be those who want to return to the old ways, but," Lee prompted, "but we have shown them something important." Kim's face softened into something that was almost a smile. "We have shown them that the small can defeat the great. that the ignored can demand to be heard, that things do not have to be the way they have always been. He looked down at Park Yuna, who was now surrounded by well-wishers and hopeful faces. The old council made us into weapons, he said. They forced us to become hard and strong and terrible, but now we have a choice. We can use that strength to hurt, or we can use it to protect. We can become what they were, or we can become something better. And what will we choose? Choi asked. Kim turned and walked toward the exit. His steps were slow, the steps of a man who was very tired and very glad that his war was over. That is not for me to decide, he said. I am a soldier. My part is finished. Now it is time for the builders and the dreamers to do their work. He paused at the door and looked back one more time. What? But I will tell you this. The galaxy will remember. They will remember that we came to them with open hands, and they answered with blood. They will remember that we could have destroyed them, and we chose mercy instead. They will remember that when everything fell apart, humanity stood up and built something new. He smiled a real smile this time. And perhaps that is the greatest victory of all. He walked out into the light. Behind him, the first meeting of the new Galactic Assembly continued. Representatives argued and debated and made compromises. Laws were written. Treaties were signed. Slowly, painfully, a new order was being born, far away. On a small blue planet called Earth, people looked up at the stars and knew that the universe would never be the same. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, with blood and fire, but they would be remembered for something else entirely, for the hope they had given to 100 worlds, and for the promise that no species would ever be ignored again. The war was over. The future was beginning. And this time, humanity would be ready for whatever came next.